What is the most wholesome thing you have seen? This is more heard than seen, but I was spending the night at my mom's house for Christmas. Her birthday is on the 25th and we usually go to a movie for it, so it was just easier for me to spend the night so we could go out the next day. Anyway, it's about 2 a.m. and I'm outside having a cigarette, when suddenly I hear one of the neighbors yelling, "What are you doing outside? Get your ass back in." Immediately after I hear a kid yell in protest, followed by, "Dad, I just wanted to see Santa land on the roof." This kid snuck out of bed and out of the house at 2 in the morning when it was probably like 20 outside, just so he could see Santa. It was really adorable, and also pretty hilarious. My parents always told me that Santa won't come down the chimney with presents unless I'm asleep. So, I would sneak out of bed and sleep on the floor near the fireplace hoping that I'd wake up when he arrived. I always awoke in my own bed assuming Santa saw me sleeping and took me to my room. Good guy, that's Santa. My son, 18 months old, trying desperately to reach his brother's, 11 months, high chair, pulling him over as close as they can get and sharing his smoothly pouch with him, then patting him on the head. Both laughed and giggled. The world's not all bad, folks, it just looks like it if you're only looking in always dark places. Edit, 18 not 16 months. How is there only 5 months between your sons? That must be hard work lol. Cute. Hope your video loads, the years fly by so fast. They are 7 months, I put the wrong number down for the older son lol, he's 18 months not 16 months. My older son is adopted, the process was long, and during it, we got pregnant even though we had been told we couldn't. We got selected for adoption when we were 12 weeks-ish along, and decided to proceed. It's a lot of work. But it's the best job I've ever had. My dad getting excited whenever he sees our cat Loki. My dad gets all happy and cheeky when he sees the cat and it's the most adorable thing ever. It could make anyone smile. Or my dad does that with our cat, constantly refers to him as the Black Panther lol. Anything Mr. Rogers and I cry every time. That man was an angel. Also once my mom was hanging with a friend of hers who just had a baby, and the baby was crying real bad. Mom took the baby and sung to him like she did with me when I was young. He calmed down and went to sleep immediately. The friend was like, "I sing to him and it doesn't work. I wish I had your voice." Wasn't me but my grandfather who was in the military told me a story on how his friend in Vietnam made food, toys, and helped this community from the Viet Cong, pushing the community down south more and more until he was shot twice in the chest and once in the head. My grandfather took his friend's dog tags to give back to his family. After his family refused them back, he kept them, still has them to this day. When I was, like, 11, Dad was driving us to a gathering at my grandma's. There was a woman pulled over on the side of the road. Dad asked if they needed help. She said she'd run out of gas. Dad told her he would get some. So we go into a gas station. Dad explains the situation to the cashier and is prepared to buy a can of gas. There's this other customer that looks like a biker, big dude with tattoos and piercings, who tells Dad he has gas at his house and tells us to get in our cars and follow him. His wife and young son were in the front yard. Turned out this was his sister's house. The guy had fled a hurricane with his family. Nevertheless, he insisted on giving us the gas for free. I have 2 nieces. At little one's birthday, her friend gave her 2 unicorn toys. She immediately looks at Big Sis with a huge smile. "Look, Big Sis. This one for you. We can both play." She was genuinely so excited to play unicorns with her sister, and it never even occurred to her that he didn't need to give one to her. My heart grew 3 sizes that day. When one of my family members was suffering from depression and wouldn't come inside or talk to any of our family, my neighbor, and my family member's best friend, just sat next to him on the curb outside for 2 hours to keep him company. A little boy at the airport kept trying to climb over a concrete divider that had active traffic on the other side. His mom was loaded with luggage and kept trying to stop him, but didn't have free hands. My brother-in-law walked up and said, "Hey kid. There's a rule here. You have to keep one foot on the ground at all times. Look around. Everyone has at least 1 foot on the ground. The kid kept trying to climb, but with 1 foot firmly glued to the ground he wasn't in danger anymore. Such a creative and wholesome way to let the kid keep playing while keeping him safe. Bit of a backstory: my pregnancy had been difficult and I was worried for my unborn child. A 20-week scan showed it was looking like my baby had a birth defect, but we would only know the full extent when he was born. Being in a vulnerable state, I was looking for hope. As is the case with these things, I turned to woo. I bought a large crystal necklace, it was a beast of a thing, and put all hopes that this would save my baby. My husband is not the spiritual type and told me up front that it was a pile of nonsense / shit, but if it made me happy to wear the thing, it might as well have been attached to my skin. That thing never came off. Moving along to the birth, I had to be induced as the baby wasn't moving. After being poked and prodded with all sorts, I finally was in labor. Slowly things took a turn for the worse. This baby wasn't going to come out smoothly. He was in distress and he needed out immediately. Before I knew it, I was about to go into surgery for an emergency C-section. I was told I had to take off all my jewelry. In a haze, I took off the crystal and handed it to me husband. Him being wheeled away to surgery, and all I can see is the look of fear on my husband's face as he slowly put on the necklace. That moment has never left me. Thankfully my child was born healthy and the defect wasn't life-threatening. He is now turning 3 and my life couldn't be further away from that moment, but it still gets me in the feels. Edit, spelling. Oh my god, that is so sweet, heart. One time I saw my elderly neighbor bring out a saucer of milk for a stray kitten. My dog was barking at it when she noticed it, so she went inside and came back with a little dish to lead it away from the sidewalk. It was all very cute and heartwarming. When I was a preschool teacher, we had one kid who was our certified cheer-upper. If someone was crying, she'd get a tissue, walk over, carefully blot their eyes and make them blow their nose. All while saying, "It's okay, you're okay." Eventually they'd stop crying, she'd take their hand and they'd go play. She was a little angel. What a sweetheart. Makes me wonder how she was raised and how wonderful her own parents, hopefully, are too. I'm a record producer. On a particular song the client wanted a child's voice to open it, so the bassist's 10-year-old son came and recorded a vocal part. Once we rapped, the singer said to the kid, "Musicians get paid." And he handed the kid a £20 note. The bassist then did the same. A small gesture maybe, but in our world making a living is hard, and it was amazing to see professionals showing how it ought to be. I was in the local supermarket doing my shopping. I was pushing my cart in the frozen food section when I came across a young woman in her 20s, I'm estimating. Her little girl, I think around 2 years old, was sitting in the cart she was pushing. She was beautifully cooing to her little girl, "I love you. I love you," among other sweet things and sounds. Now, I never met this young lady. I never talked to her. Just watched her treat her daughter very sweetly with all the love in the world. It was the most nicest thing to see and experience because my own upbringing was a living hell. My parents broke up when I was young, around 5 to 6 years old. Mother got custody of us kids and she was a mentally ill, abusive, psychotic monster. I never knew a scene like that in my own life. All I got from my mother is daily yelling, screaming, cursing, nagging, and hitting. On more than one occasion she told me to my face how she wished I was never born. I just knew, with a kind, loving mother like that in her life, that little girl was going to grow up into a nice, normal, happy human being. Having a mother like that makes all the difference in the world. Have a big hug. I hope you are not overwhelmed by your feelings, when you have to take notice of what you never had. When I first had foster children placed with me after bedtime, my pit bull would go into each room and check on the kids and then sleep in the hallway. If any woke crying in the night, she would crawl into bed with them. I just shed tears of joy. This makes me happy. It was a gift to see. My dad going all mushy over my parents' little chiweenie. They have 3 dogs, but Hershey, the smallest, is hands down his favorite. He gives her belly rubs and massages and even baby talks to her. It's absolutely adorable. Uncle Iro and his tea shop. My 2-year-old nephew giving his 4-month-old sister, my niece, kisses constantly. He won't give anyone else kisses but her. He can barely even speak but clearly already loves his baby sister. It's so adorable. I always get the shivers when I see a very dedicated parent. A few months ago I was on the train on my way to work, when a mother entered with her approximately 10-year-old daughter, who was in a wheelchair. The girl would do nothing but talk, ask questions and narrate everything she did, leaving almost no chance for anyone, her mother, to participate in the conversation. I felt bad for the child, because it seemed as it was impossible for her to keep a thought to herself, yet whatever she said ended up as a monologue. Her mother had very calm, pleasant and patient vibes. Not once did she judge or interrupt her daughter, while I was present. Whenever her daughter asked a question, she would answer it, not getting irritated by the fact that the girl would continue talking. Maybe she was listening after all. At times, the mother would encourage her daughter to elaborate certain thoughts and sometimes the girl did. Edit, spelling. When my youngest was 2/3 he slept in bed with me. I woke up one night to him not there. I panicked and looked around. He was laying and sleeping cuddled next to my oldest son. I have bipolar disorder. Sometimes it can get scary. One day, I flew into a rage over nothing. I was screaming as loud as I could and punching pillows. I'm responsible, and my dog, who is not a trained therapy dog, came over to me with his head bent low, laid in my lap, and kissed me until I calmed down. He is my angel. I had a crying fit recently over something and my dog came and snuggled and kissed me until I had calmed down. So my mom is like a walking charity that can essentially do no harm. She has her flaws, but she does her best. Anywho, this is a story on how she shares things. Just this week, we were at the supermarket and she saw we had forgotten our plastic reusable bags, so I went to get them. When I came back and gave them to her, she took out 2 of the more expensive ones and gave them to this lady that was with her kids, and TBH, how she did it was so nice. She saw she didn't have the budget to buy the bags, I guess, so she just gave them to her. And the lady was so grateful. Another time, she gave away a pendant to a girl with Down syndrome that I'm sure was expensive. I don't keep track of what she buys, but it was on the expensive side of the box that day, and the girl was so happy. Seeing my 4-year-old nephew share his peanut butter sandwich with his friend at the playground. Like, when do they learn this, or how do you teach one that early? It's amazing. Sometimes they imitate others. It works for cursing, should work for sharing. Otters. My 2 boys are 2 and 4. They can fight a lot and don't always share. But when they do share and play together, it warms my heart. My brother and I were best friends growing up, and I hope that they are too. Especially since my youngest was diagnosed autistic, was headed to Oakland from San Francisco through the tube. Trains packed as always. People on BART are good about public transit etiquette in general during commute hours, so nobody's talking or listening to music or anything. When we leave the tube onto the viaduct over the port, one guy answers his phone. Hello? Yeah? Oh my god. What hospital? Okay, I'll be there as soon as I can. He hangs up and just looks super distraught. Someone taps him on the shoulder and says my car is parked at West Oakland. Do you need a ride? He agrees and they get off together. Little gesture, but it was uplifting to see someone volunteer for a stranger like that. This is nice, fate in humanity restored. /Bon Appetit. My dad and I were at a stoplight a few blocks away from a grocery store and a homeless man was sitting on the curb. I would have given him some money, but the road was pretty busy. I watched a guy with 2 huge bags of groceries walk up the street and give them to the homeless man. Smile. It was such a kind gesture, I almost cried right there in the car. My last week of high school, our lunch lady gave out small gifts to some of the seniors. Just the kids that took the time to chat with her that she got to know more personally. I received a sketchbook with a sweet good luck note in it. I was always in art club and was going to school for fine arts. So she took the time to get all of us a gift that was specific to US. This lady saw hundreds of kids a day and still took the effort to get to know us. I gifted a used electric wheelchair to a family who couldn't afford one. The kid, maybe 14 years old, was kinda grumpy looking when he arrived, didn't say much. Once we got him in the chair and he was zooming around, he was all smiles. His mother was also super happy. I heard the next day he told his sister to clear off the driveway so he could practice with it, and by the weekend he had gone to a fair. I read a story once about a woman whose father had died before her wedding and his organs were donated. The man who received his heart walked her down the aisle. Oh my god, that's so sweet.